Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, January 6th, 2021. And we are live, and all hell broke loose today at the U.S. Capitol building when pro-Trump thugs stormed the U.S. Capitol building to try to overthrow, to try to interrupt the Electoral College count. The count of the votes from the Electoral College. They tried to engage in an insurrection. This was a criminal act. All of them should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. If Black Lives Matter activists, if African Americans tried this, if the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense tried this, you know they will all be in prison right now. There are calls for the 25th Amendment to be implemented to remove Donald Trump from office immediately because he's a threat to national security. I've told you before, he is a thug gangster. This is what he is. He is a criminal thug gangster, and he showed it today. So we're going to break down, give you a recap of what happened today. If you've been following me on my Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, we've been covering this display of domestic terrorism by a bunch of thugs, by a bunch of criminals, by a bunch of traitors to the country. And this is what's taking place. Now, back in 2016, I was on this station 5 days a week warning you about this criminal, about this traitor, and I told you he was totally unfit to be president. I told you in 2016, long before the election, day after day after day, that he was mentally unfit to be president. And he proved it today. So now the whole world sees what I've been talking about. Everybody share this broadcast on social media platforms. We're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. So we deal with chaos as the U.S. Capitol building was stormed by a mob of pro-Trump supporters, a bunch of thugs. This was an attempted coup. This was an attempted coup. The last time we probably saw something like this on this level was in 1898 in Wilmington, North Carolina, where you had a bunch of white supremacists that overthrew the duly elected biracial government. We talked about that here on this show. That was back in 1898. We see that Vice President Mike Pence had to be evacuated. Senator Chuck Grassley had to be evacuated. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi had to be evacuated. So we're going to deal with a recap of what took place today. And then also we'll talk about the Georgia election as well. We see that both Democratic candidates, Reverend Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff, both beat the Republican senators, as they should have, Senator David Perdue and Senator Kelly Loeffler. And as we've been talking about on this show, the law that was put in place back in about 1963 that dealt with the runoff elections for statewide elections in the state of Georgia was designed to prevent African Americans from gaining statewide political power. There was a segregationist representative of the Georgia State House named Denmark Groover. We've talked about this the past few days. And the law that was put in place for runoff elections was designed to keep from happening what just happened. But justice prevailed. The truth prevailed. Reverend Raphael Warnock beat Senator Kelly Loeffler as he should have. But he beat her back on November 3rd. The only reason why he had to run against somebody that he already beat was because of racism. And white supremacists, segregationists, like Representative Denmark Groover back in 1963, trying to keep African Americans from having statewide political power. Because if they know if they had statewide political power, they would change these laws that are working against us. Read the article from yahoonews.com. We've talked about it here the past few days. A brief history of Georgia runoff voting. A brief history of Georgia runoff voting. okay, which goes through and breaks down its history. A brief history of Georgia's runoff voting and its racist roots. This is from November 23rd, 2020, from yahoonews.com, that goes through and breaks down this history. All right, so everybody's been seeing what's been going on today. The whole world's been seeing what a traitor Donald Trump is. Not just a sore loser, but a traitor. He doesn't care about the Constitution. He doesn't care about the safety of his own followers, anything. Only thing he cares about is himself, and he's trying to stay out of prison, but that's where he belongs. He's a thug criminal who belongs in prison. So far, we see that one person died today. We see the updates from NBCnews.com. We're going to look at updates from Washington Post, NBC News, probably New York Times, ABC News also. We see that the Congress was evacuated, National Guard activated. One person was killed today. The U.S. Capitol descended into chaos and violence Wednesday, January 6, 2021, as hundreds of pro-Trump rioters swarmed the building and at least one person was shot dead. Now, to me, these are domestic terrorists. It's one thing to protest. You can protest all you want to outside the building. When you break into the U.S. Capitol building, you are a terrorist. These are domestic terrorists. It's all right to protest. You can protest that you don't like Joe Biden won and Senator Kamala Harris won and your candidate lost. You can protest outside. That's fine. You break barriers and break into the U.S. Capitol building. You threaten members of Congress. You are a domestic terrorist. This is what happened today. So pro-Trump rioters swarmed the building and at least one person was shot dead, forcing the U.S. Senate to evacuate and Vice President Mike Pence to be ushered to a secure location. The frenzied scene after domestic terrorists broke through barricades, forced the U.S. Congress to evacuate parts of the building and abruptly pause a ceremonial event affirming that President-elect Joe Biden won the November election. In one dramatic moment, police officers drew guns as rioters tried to break into the House chamber. These ain't rioters. These are domestic terrorists. NBC News needs to correct this. No, rioters don't break into the U.S. chamber. These are domestic terrorists trying to overthrow the government. This is what happened. If they had been black, they'd be dead right now, or at least in the hospital, shot 15 times, something like that. You know. If black people tried this, okay, if black people tried this, you know that at the very least, it'd be all of them be arrested. A lot of them be dead. I'm just going to be honest with you. A lot of them be dead right now. Okay. We noticed there was an article from Forbes.com. And see, you know, I ain't broadcast it all today because I'm following what's going on. And I'm like, a couple of times a day I was going to broadcast, but everything, this was like a very fluid day in news. This is what we call a very fluid day because the information is changing from minute to minute. So I said, you know, I'll just wait till I come on the air tonight because I really wanted to broadcast earlier today, but I said, no, you know, let's wait for some of this to die down before I get on here and tell you what's really happening. We have some clips that we're going to play also what took place today on Capitol Hill as well. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. See, I'm all riled up. I haven't even done our intro yet. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. So I know people are worried you're going to bust a blood vessel, things like that. We way past that. I'm telling you right now, we're way past that. But see, I'm somebody who I'm not just a historian, I also study politics and law. You cannot have a dictator as president of the United States. You cannot have somebody who's a sociopath and has dictator-like tendencies as president of the United States. This is why there are more calls for the 25th Amendment to be implemented now to remove him from office because he still has the nuclear codes. He's still in charge of the military. Remove his ass from office now. Okay, let's go back to this because we're coming up here on the break. All right. and believe it or not, I'm trying to stay calm. believe it or not, I really am trying to stay calm. All right. But, you know, hey, And then you had dumbasses in 2016 telling African Americans don't vote. Nonsense. Okay, but let's continue here. Okay, so Vice President Mike Pence, who was presiding over the joint session of Congress. So this was a joint session of Congress, the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. Okay, joint session of Congress. This is ceremonial. Usually every 4 years this takes place. This ain't a big deal. This usually not coverage on MSNBC and CNN. Usually when this takes place, this is a formality. They don't have the authority to overturn the will of the people, and the votes were certified by county board canvassers. They were certified at the state level. Okay, signed off on by the Secretary of State. Then the Electoral College votes on the first Monday, following the second Wednesday in December. That was on December 14th. And Pence, as we talked about on yesterday's show, Pence told Trump, "I don't have no authority to overturn the will of the people." What are you talking about? Pence is following the Constitution, as I said he would. So, Vice President Mike Pence, who was presiding over the joint session of Congress, could be seen rushing out of the Senate chamber amid the sounds of throngs of Donald Trump's supporters, his thugs, who surrounded the U.S. Capitol. Pence and Senator Charles Grassley, Republican of Ohio, the Senate President pro tem, were taken to a secure location, a senator told NBC News. A woman was shot inside the Capitol by a member of law enforcement and later died, several law enforcement officials said. The doors of the U.S. Senate were closed and locked, and senators were told to stay away from the area. The doors to the House of Representatives were barricaded, and some lawmakers were seen praying. Washington Mayor Muriel Bowser ordered a 12-hour curfew in the city that began at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Twitter and other social media channels were flooded with images of protesters skirmishing with police officers, and there were multiple reports of rioting inside the Capitol building by a bunch of thugs. And some rioters broke windows, battered down doors, and postured in the Senate chamber. They broke into Nancy Pelosi's office. They broke into some other people's offices. I'm telling you right now, if black people did something, if we did 1/10 of this, if we did 1/10 of this, you know that there'd be a bunch of GoFundMe campaigns paying for funerals. This is the height of white privilege. I don't want to ever hear anybody talk about, oh, white privilege don't exist. All you got to do is look at January 6, 2021, and look at these thugs climbing up the side of the Capitol building, all this stuff. And they're still alive to tell a story. That's white privilege. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, Superstation, Future Radio on Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes if they let me come back on the air. All right, stand by. All right, everybody, share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Then let me come back on. I've been on this station almost 5 years. All right, everybody, share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. Hey, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network show. We're here 6 nights a week. It was one night for 4 years, starting October 12th, 2020. We're on Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time. And we're still on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so that helps us to keep doing the research, stay on the air, buy all these printer cartridges I got to buy to print all this paper to do all this. All right, $ the AHN show through Cash App and paypal.me/the AHN show. How you doing, Sherry? Post the name of your business. We have Sherry. Sherry is one of our advertisers. We have blackbusinesstee.com. We have their ads running through when we do our rebroadcast. Post the information for your business, Sherry. We got John Ray. John Ray, post the info for your business. That info that you posted last night, I was trying to find it again, John Ray, because that's what we need to put into your commercial, man. We need to try to keep your commercial like really simple. Okay. We need to keep your commercial really simple, man. All right. Who else we have? Everybody. John trying to get everything into a 60-second commercial. I'm like, John, I'm trying to, he said, look. It's like, hold on, man. We got to boil this down to a 60-second commercial. Okay. Yeah. Blackbusinesstee.com. Sherry Henderson. Sherry, and we at the I sent you a message also, share. We have to schedule an interview for you also on my Facebook fan page. Also for you, John, as well. Okay, we got Maurice. Trump is the biggest liar on this side of creation. Dude, this right here, he showed his entire ass today. You had Rudy Giuliani. Look, this is going to be some criminal charges coming. This is sedition. You're inciting violence. You are inciting violence. Okay. All right, we'll be back from break here in a couple minutes here. So everybody stand by. Okay, everybody stand by. Okay, welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. They let me come back on the air. All right. It is Wednesday. It's Wednesday, January 6, 2021, and we're live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Okay, so we're talking about the chaos at the U.S. Capitol. Pro-Trump thugs stormed the U.S. Capitol building. Okay, now they have a First Amendment right to protest outside of the Capitol building. That's fine. Okay, I may not like your message, but you do have a First Amendment right to protest outside of the Capitol building lawfully. When you break the barriers and break into the Capitol building, that's something entirely different. They need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. All right. On the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you've been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts or a woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of their actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. We deal with a number of different topics here: current events, history, politics, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. And then also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Sign up for our email newsletter there as well. If you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App. Then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, and at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right. Okay, let's get back to what took place today. So the Congress reconvened to certify the Electoral College votes. All right. And they're having a debate over one state, the vote, the objection for the state of Arizona. They took that vote and they're rejecting that objection. So we're not sure how long this process is going to take place. But at the end, after all is said and done, the will of the people is not going to be overturned. Joe Biden will be sworn into office as president. Senator Kamala Harris will be sworn into office as vice president. Okay, this is a formality. This is the equivalent to the Academy Awards, and the person who reads the name of who won the category, they can't say, "Oh, no, we don't like that. We want Tyler Perry to win. Oh, we want Purple Rain to win. Oh, no, we want Malcolm X to win," even though Malcolm X should have won. But they can't overturn. The votes already took place. They can't overturn this. This is a formality. Okay. The problem is you have some people grandstanding and other people don't understand the Constitution. Okay. So Twitter and social media channels were flooded with images of protesters skirmishing with police officers. And there were multiple reports of rioting inside the Capitol, and some rioters broke windows, battered down doors, and postured in the Senate chamber. Improvised explosive devices were found. Okay, these thugs planning improvised explosive devices on the U.S. Capitol grounds. Several law enforcement officials reported this. Officers were in the process of destroying the devices, and it was not clear whether they were functional or not. At least one was made of a small section of galvanized pipe. An official with the FBI's Washington field office told NBC News on Wednesday that 2 explosive devices were discovered, and one which was found at the Republican National Committee headquarters, was safely detonated. I also saw a report there was an explosive device found at the Democratic National Committee headquarters as well. Quote, 2 suspected explosive devices were rendered safe by the FBI and our law enforcement partners. The investigation is ongoing, end quote, an agency spokesperson said. 5 weapons were recovered from the complex and 3 arrests were made. DC police said none of the people were residents of the District of Washington, D.C. There were 12 arrests in the previous 2 days leading up to Wednesday. There were 12 arrests in the previous 2 days leading up to Wednesday. Now, Donald Trump has directed the National Guard to head to the U.S. Capitol. He said in a tweet, and U.S. Capitol Police were requested. U.S. Capitol Police have requested additional support. The FBI has been deployed, and the U.S. Marshal Service was assisting in the response as well. Former President George W. Bush condemned the violence in a statement and also indirectly criticized Trump and his supporters. Okay, so we'll come back to that in just a second here. Let me, for the sake of time here, I want to look at a couple of things quickly here. There was a good article from Forbes.com. What if they were black? Commentators, Twitter users denounce double standard as cops take selfies with Capitol protesters. What if they were black? Okay, this is by Isabel Toga, Togoh. I think that's how you pronounce her name. This is for Forbes.com. As scenes of mostly white Trump supporters swarming the U.S. Capitol with little pushback from law enforcement emerged on Wednesday, along with video showing cops appearing to take selfies with some of the perpetrators, commentators urged Republicans to condemn the violence with the same vigor they used to denounce anti-racism protesters, as they suggested that a group of largely black or Muslim protesters would likely be treated more harshly. Hey, Shakita, I'm going to go to clip number, I think it's clip number 3 from Joanne Reed from MSNBC. So cue that up, clip 3, okay? If this was a BLM protest, I'm going to go to that in just a second. Let's see. Okay, so law enforcement were outnumbered by the mob and appearing largely absent inside the building, told lawmakers, members of the House of Representatives and U.S. Senate, to put on gas masks and tear gas as tear gas was fired inside. Okay, a clip posted on social media by political consultant Timothy Burke appeared to show Trump supporters taking a selfie with law enforcement after breaking into the U.S. Capitol. Some social media users suggested there was a double standard, as the protesters, who were mostly white and male, were able to enter the building and were seen wandering around the Senate floor, sitting in the chamber and looting property. Now, wasn't Donald Trump talking about looters and protesters this past summer and talking about law and order? He's not talking about law and order now for these looters and protesters and these thugs and these criminals. He's not talking about law and order now. Quote, having covered many protests over the years, I do wonder if the majority of these folks were black and brown, whether they be treated the same way they're being treated right now. MSNBC anchor Craig Melvin tweeted. Charles Ramsey told CNN, former Philadelphia police chief Charles Ramsey told CNN, quote, I don't know what they're doing in there, but they need to be locking them up, end quote. I agree. Hashtag lock them up. At least 13 people have been arrested and 5 weapons have been recovered so far citywide amid Wednesday's pro-Trump protests. Washington, D.C. Police Chief Robert Conti III said. Now, CNN, let's see here. Okay, let's go to this clip here. This is from January 6th. MSNBC, Joanne Reed, if this was a BLM protest, Black Lives Matter, there would already be people shackled, arrested, or dead. Let's go to this clip. We had the clip.
14, when, because I can go back to 2014 when I would be on Rachel's show as a correspondent at curfew time in Baltimore when I was covering the Freddie Gray uprisings. And these were mass marches that were in regard to police taking Freddie Gray's body and treating it like a rag doll and flinging him into the back of a police van and then riding around with him unshackled in that van until the rag doll broke and he died. And he died alone in the back of a car being brutalized for no reason other than making eye contact with police as he rode his bike. And the uprisings that took place after Freddie Gray brought in what a level of policing that I've never witnessed ever in life. It looked like a war zone. Police brought in tanks. They brought in body armor. They were wearing full body armor rubber suits where they almost looked robotic, full gear, enormous, powerful weaponry. And they were phalanx out all across Baltimore, 10 and North. They were standing menacingly waiting to brutalize anyone who even looked at them funny. The level of force, the level of just almost indiscriminate rudeness, cruelty, hardness of those police officers. And at curfew time, which would be 9 o'clock, and then almost every night during that uprising, at some point I would go on with you, Rachel, and describe to you what I was seeing, and it was terrifying. And what terrified me in those moments in Baltimore were not the marchers. I was never afraid among the marchers. The marchers just wanted justice. They just didn't think it was okay to just kill a guy because he looked at the police funny. I wasn't afraid of them. I was afraid of the cops because they were menacing. They knew those marchers were coming every night. They knew there was going to be a curfew every night. The great Elijah Cummings would walk people home and get them to go home because he didn't want them out after curfew. There would always be some guys who would stay out after the curfew, who would refuse to go home, who would claim the right to be in their streets. And I was never afraid of them. I was afraid of the cops. The reason, as Claire talked about, that these people were so unafraid of the cops, who were sparsely distributed through our capital, which hasn't been breached since 1812, when it was burned. The reason they could easily and casually, with their cameras on, film themselves throwing things through the walls of our capital, our property, going inside the Capitol, sitting in Speaker Pelosi's office, casually take pictures of themselves, have that played on Fox News, they know that they are not in jeopardy. Because the cops are taking selfies with them, walking them down the steps to make sure they're not hurt, taking care with their bodies, not like they treated Freddie Gray's body. White Americans aren't afraid of the cops. White Americans are never afraid of the cops, even when they're committing insurrection, even when they're engaged in attempting to occupy our capital, to steal the votes of people who look like me. Because in their minds, they own this country, they own that capital, they own the cops work for them, and people like me have no damn right to try to elect a president. Because we don't get to pick the president, they get to pick the president. They own the president, they own the White House, they own this country. And so when you think you own it, you own the place, you ain't afraid of the police because the police are you, and the police reflect back to them. We're with you. You're good. We're not going to hurt you because you're not them. Guarantee you, if that was a Black Lives Matter protest in D.C., there would already be people shackled, arrested, or dead. Shackled, arrested, en masse, or dead.
All right.
Cunningham on here.
Oh, keep going.
She'll tell you how they treated her in Ferguson.
Keep going. Keep going.
They treated her at every Black Lives Matter march. Get Patrice colors on. They'll tell you. They'll tell you what it feels like to protest peacefully and unarmed and have how the police will treat you if you're Black. That's it. They're not afraid of the cops because they know the cops are cool with it.
All right. So that was pause right there. Okay, so that was Joanne Reed on MSNBC today. That's the name of that clip is if this was a BLM protest, there would already be people shackled, arrested, or dead. Okay, we'll watch that at msnbc.com. We'll post the clip here. Okay, I want to go to, and let me know if we have any callers, Shakita. Okay, I want to go to the story here from abcnews.com. Members of Trump cabinet discussing invoking 25th Amendment. Sources. Members of Trump's cabinet discussing invoking 25th Amendment. Sources. Many have been horrified by Wednesday's events and Trump's lack of action. There have been discussions among some members of the Trump cabinet and allies of Donald Trump about the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which would be a vehicle for members of the cabinet to remove this traitor from office. Multiple sources with direct knowledge of the discussions tell ABC News. I call him a traitor. That's my word. ABC News didn't call him one, but I call him a traitor because he is. It is unclear how extensive these conversations have been or if Vice President Mike Pence is supportive of this action. Many have been horrified by Wednesday's events and Trump's encouragement and lack of engagement to call in resources to stop the protesters, the sources said. Trump has only 14 days left in office. It's 14 days too many. But some lawmakers want his presidency over sooner, calling for his impeachment in the wake of Wednesday's violence on Capitol Hill that left at least one woman dead. Representative Ilhan Omar, Democrat from Minnesota, announced that she's drawing up articles of impeachment. She tweeted, quote, "We can't allow him to remain in office. It's a matter of preserving our republic, and we need to fulfill our oath." They take an oath to defend the U.S. Constitution against enemies, both foreign and domestic. Well, Trump is an enemy to the U.S. Constitution and to the country. He's a traitor. Representative Seth Moulton, Democrat from Massachusetts, called for Trump's removal through the 25th Amendment, which was ratified in 1967 in the wake of President John F. Kennedy's assassination in 1963, and lays out the procedures for replacing the president in the event of death, removal, resignation, or incapacitation. Okay, incapacitated or mentally unstable, as Trump is. Quote, "Trump is directly responsible for this insurrection and violence. He needs to be removed from office immediately. It is the constitutional responsibility of Vice President Pence and the cabinet to exercise the power granted them by the 25th Amendment, or Congress must immediately impeach and remove the president for the safety of our nation," end quote. Representative Charlie Crist, Democrat from Florida, agreed. Other lawmakers called for Trump's removal from office. In a tweet Wednesday evening, Trump falsely claimed, quote, "These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots and have been." Let me get the hell out of here, that BS. He lied. You lost. It wasn't it was a landslide for Joe Biden. You lost by damn near 8 million votes, and he got the same amount of electoral college votes as you did. So no, it wasn't stolen. You lost. All right, stop lying. NBC News. We're going to the phone lines in just a minute. Hold on, Melanie. We're coming to you just a second here. NBC News reported Facebook and Twitter locked Trump's accounts after posting video praising rioters. Facebook and Twitter locked Donald Trump's accounts after posting video praising rioters. Twitter removed 3 tweets from the account of President Donald Trump, the first Russian president of the United States, on Wednesday, January 6, 2021, and suspended his account for 12 hours. It should be suspended for like 14 days till he leaves the White House. It should be suspended. But they suspended for 12 hours after he continued to push conspiracy theories about the election after a mob of thugs, criminals, stormed the U.S. Capitol. Now, the company also warned that further violations of its rules, quote, will result in permanent suspension, end quote, of Trump's Twitter account. One of the tweets included a video of Donald Trump repeated unfounded, idiotic, baseless claims that the election was taken from him and encouraging his supporters to disperse after violence erupted at the U.S. Capitol. Well, that's after you encouraged the violence, because at that little punk ass rally that you had today, you told them, let's go to the U.S. Capitol. This is your fault. This is your fault. He said that law and order were needed and that he loved his supporters. Law and order is needed. They need to lock your ass up. That's law and order. Start with you. Law and order is needed. Go from the top down. Law and order is needed. They need to lock your ass up. Facebook and YouTube also removed the video from Trump's accounts. Facebook said it would be blocking Donald Trump's account from posting for 24 hours due to 2 policy violations. Twitter removed Trump's post after initially having prohibited it from being retweeted or replied to. They just removed his post. Good. It had added a tag to the post that read, quote, this claim of election fraud is disputed and this tweet can't be replied to, retweeted, or liked due to a risk of violence. Twitter also removed a subsequent tweet from Trump. Now, Twitter said through one of its company accounts that if Trump removes the tweets, his account will be unlocked. Trump's official government account on Twitter, which he does not use as frequently as his personal account, remains active. Trump's official government account on Twitter, which he does not use as frequently as his personal account, remains active. The removals are dramatic steps given past hesitancy to curb the speech of political figures such as the president. Twitter and Facebook have placed fact-check labels on some of Trump's posts in the past when they included information that violated their rules, and Twitter has temporarily locked his personal and campaign accounts before. YouTube said in a statement that the video violated, quote, policies regarding content that alleges widespread fraud or errors changed the outcome. YouTube said in a statement said that the video that Trump posted violated, quote, policies regarding content that alleges widespread fraud or errors changed that the outcome, end quote. Facebook said, quote, the violent protests in the Capitol today are a disgrace. We prohibit incitement and calls for violence on our platform. We are actively reviewing and removing any content that breaks these rules, end quote. So read the rest of this article here from NBCnews.com. Facebook and Twitter locked Trump's accounts after posting video praising rioters. They were trying to, this was an insurrection, and he praised that because he's a traitor. This is what you're dealing with. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to Melanie, line 1. Hey, Melanie, welcome to the African History Network show. Thanks for holding. Tell us where you're calling. Well, hold on, who we have? Yeah, Melanie, line 1. Tell us where you're calling from, Melanie. Do we have Melanie? Take your phone off mute.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead. Tell us where you're calling from, Melanie. Thanks for holding.
Okay. Yes, this is Melanie Hines. I'm with the Wayne Westland Board of Education in Westland. Thank you for having me on your show tonight.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I did want to make a comment about the domestic terrorism. As a local African-American board member, I've experienced that as well. And I've noticed it to the point where I have a lot of other African-American friends that are leaving these boards because of these situations. Just recently, I just had a re-election, and I was being targeted by my, board president and vice president. And I had one of my opponents suing me because he lost his race. And a lot of this is due to, this propaganda and putting out false information and this white supremacy.
Right.
So, as an elected official, our job is to help protect the citizens. But when you're being attacked because of your color of your skin, that's a problem. And it's making a lot of people not want to be, in public office because of the threat.
So how do you? So I've seen you post, and we're Facebook friends, Melanie. I've seen you post about it. So how do you deal with those threats? How do you deal with? So we have people listening across the country. What's the racial makeup of Westland, Michigan? First of all.
Was about it's kind of turned to like about 40% African American. Even in our school district, the dynamics is changing. We have more minorities, in our district. And it historically was a predominantly white district, but now with the races changing and being more diverse, a lot of people are older white men that's on the board, and they don't like the changes, and they want to keep it the same status quo.
So there's a lot of older white people on the Board of Education for Westland, Michigan, and they don't like a lot of the changes that are coming with a more diverse community.
Correct. We also had three. We had 3 women on the board. 2 of them left because of the consternation dealing with, the hostility from the board members. So now we have a new, female African American member. I got reelected, and I was 5, white males to the 2 African American females. So even though I got reelected, it's going to be a tough, 6 years.
Wow. All right. So lastly, so how do you deal with that? How do you cope with that? How do you persevere?
I deal with a lot of my community organizations. I deal with a lot of ministers. I have a good relationship. One thing I do like about Westland, our mayor has started a diversity initiative to help, deal with these issues, because it is something that's ongoing. But I do have an issue with my children in my school district, because they've made numerous complaints about, these racial inequities, and the board president hasn't done anything about it. So they feel like they're being ignored and neglected. So I'm trying to work with other parents in the community to have some type of coalition together, because the problem is you can't sit there and stick your head in the sand.
Right.
It's making the situation worse.
Right. Exactly. All right, Melanie, thanks for calling in. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And Westland is a suburb of Detroit. For those listening around the country that don't know, it's Westland, Michigan. Okay. I want to go to this next clip. We're going to go to clip 2, Shakita. So Ari Melber, who is the chief legal correspondent for MSNBC, he's an attorney. He talked about there's evidence of a great many crimes committed today. Ari Melber spoke with Rachel Maddow about the legal ramifications of the mob violence at the U.S. Capitol today. Let's go to this clip, Shakita. Clip 2.
Hear remarks from Senator Mitch McConnell, so we'll keep an eye on that. I'll be looking to see whether or not he will be talking about meting out any sort of punishment against Republicans who have incited what happened today.
Yeah, Rachel, I mean, to the points you raised, number one, both houses of Congress, the House and the Senate, control whether and how to seat members and whether to remove members. The Constitution provides for expulsion. The House does it at a 2/3 vote, obviously a high bar, but it can happen. And we should note, with all of today's discussion on this sad day of how far you have to go back to see the Capitol breach, this Capitol that we look at under nightfall tonight with Washington under curfew, many of the expulsions that have occurred where the House has taken that extraordinary measure and voted to expel members were around deeming members disloyal in the context of the Civil War. 15 senators and 5 House members in total have been expelled. As for the other point you raised, I'll touch on it briefly, Rachel. When this scene was first breaking out, I, like many, was watching your breaking news coverage. You raised immediately the legal evidence on the ground that showed, it appeared, so many people breaking laws and then being treated with great leniency as they stormed the stairs. And so I'll point out for you and for viewers, there are several federal crimes here at issue. There's trespassing, obviously, going onto property in an unauthorized manner. There's entering what is called a restricted government building under federal law. That's any government building like this one where, for example, someone is appearing under Secret Service protection, in this case, Vice President Pence. That's a crime. If you enter that building with a deadly weapon or in a manner that leads to grievous bodily injury or death, that's a felony punishable up to 10 years if someone both enters that building unlawfully and then is linked to that conduct. There's also physical damage to property. So I know you were reporting late tonight on some U.S. attorneys speaking out on this. As a matter of federal procedure, there is evidence of a great many crimes committed today. The pictures we saw provide, on the one hand, a spectacle for the whole world to watch, which we've been covering. On the other hand, in a very real way, this documentation, this journalism performed in real time, a sad day for America, also, I think, provides very legal evidence that could be used in future prosecutions, Rachel.
And what type of prosecutors are we talking about here? Obviously, you're describing federal crimes because we're talking about federal property here. But I was struck to see the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Kentucky, the U.S. Attorney in the Northern District of Ohio, both of them Trump appointees, say if you traveled to D.C. from this district, from Eastern Kentucky, from Northern Ohio, to go cause these crimes, you will be prosecuted in this district. Are these prosecutions that would happen where you're from or where you committed the crime?
It's a great legal question, Rachel. I think door number one would be the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. It would be the person with that local jurisdiction. And often those U.S. attorneys change as a matter of course with a new administration. Next year, the statute of limitations will be alive. So any of these could be pursued either now or later by the Justice Department and the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia based on where these possible crimes occurred. Again, as always, they would have to be investigated. There's a fair process for that. The other way, door number two, as you mentioned, is if there is conspiring or traveling across state lines, you could have a federal prosecution by someone in those other jurisdictions. Somebody planned a crime over here, and they went over there to Washington to commit it. Those are both options. I think it's fair to say that the precedent or the general practice would be first to try door number one out of D.C. But those were as well newsworthy and extraordinary statements by those other federal prosecutors.
Mr. Okay, that was from pause it right there, Chiquita. Pause right there. Okay, that's from MSNBC. That was Ari Melber, chief legal correspondent for MSNBC, breaking down the crimes that, as of right now, that we see that were committed. Okay, today. We only have a couple minutes left here. I want to go to clip 4. Senator Cory Booker. When the U.S. Senate reconvened today, when the joint House and Senate reconvened today to count and certify the votes from the states that have already been, and the Electoral College has already voted. They're actually certifying the Electoral College votes. Senator Cory Booker condemned the Capitol riot, and he ties the mob to the Confederacy. Let's go to clip 4. Senator Cory Booker condemns. Go ahead.
Individuals laid siege to our Capitol, stormed our sacred civic spaces, and tried to upend and overrun this government. One was in the War of 1812, and the other one was today. What's interesting about the parallel between the two is they both were waving flags to a sole sovereign, to an individual, surrendering democratic principles to the cult of personality. One was a monarch in England, and the other were the flags I saw all over our Capitol, including in the hallways and in this room, to a single person named Donald Trump. The sad difference between these two times is one was yet another nation in the history of our country that tried to challenge the United States of America. But this time, we brought this hell upon ourselves. My colleague from Texas said that this was a moment where there were unprecedented allegations of voter fraud. Yes, that is true. They were unprecedented when the president, before the election even happened, said, if I lose this election, then the election was rigged. That's unprecedented. It's unprecedented before the night of the voting even the counting of the vote was even done that he called it rigged. And it's unprecedented that he is fanning the flames of conspiracy theory to create a smokescreen in this nation. to cover what he is trying to do, which is undermine our democratic principles. But it's not just that. The shame of this day is it's being aided and abetted by good Americans who are falling prey, who are choosing Trump over truth, who are surrendering to the passion of lies as opposed to standing up and speaking truth to power, who are trying to fundraise off of the shame of conspiracy theories as opposed to doing the incalculably valuable, patriotic thing to speak truth to our nation.
All right, pause right there, Shakita. I know we're out of time. All right. So, hey, those watching us on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, keep watching. We're going to keep broadcasting there. We're out of time here on 910 AM, the Superstation. Right now, it's correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. Stay tuned for Pastor Greg Davis. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. All right, stand by, everybody. Let me disconnect this call from the radio station. So we're on Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time on 910 AM, the Superstation, WFDF here in Detroit. We do radio here in Detroit. And then we're on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Normally on Sundays, I'm at the radio station, broadcasting from the radio station, but because of COVID-19, they have us broadcasting from home. Okay. We're going to go back to the rest of that clip here. African-American business owners, supposed to name your business here in the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. And we'll be here for a little while longer. We're going to talk a little bit about the Georgia Senate race as well. Reverend Raphael Warnock won, as we reported last night's show. We got the results while we were broadcasting. And then late last night, I think it was either late last night or early this morning, we posted an article from Vox.com that called it for Jon Ossoff. And then NBC News called it this afternoon for Jon Ossoff as well. So Democrats won both races. They need to thank Queen Stacey Abrams. Okay, Stacey Abrams and the New Georgia Project and Fair Fight. You know, they really pushed to educate voters. They built a coalition of African American voters, Hispanic voters, Asian Americans, etc. There were other groups, Black Voters Matter. You know, Latasha Brown, and there's a whole coalition of people. I want to go back to this clip here from Senator Cory Booker.
Who are choosing Trump over truth, who are surrendering to the passion of lies as opposed to standing up and speaking truth to power, who are trying to fundraise off of the shame of conspiracy theories as opposed to doing the incalculably valuable, patriotic thing to speak truth to our nation. Our democracy is wounded, and I saw it when I saw pictures of yet another insurgency, of a flag of another group of Americans who tried to challenge our nation. I saw the flag of the Confederacy there. What will we do? How will we confront this shame? How will we confront this dark second time in American history? I pray that we remember a Georgian. His words, all I can say is we must in spirit join together like those Georgians on a bridge called the Edmund Pettus, who joined hands, who were called threats to our democracy, who were called outrageous epithets when they sought to expand our democracy, to save it and to heal it, when they joined arm in arm and said what we should say now, commit ourselves to that ideal, that together we shall overcome.
Okay, so that was Senator Cory Booker during that was on the Senate floor. Mitch McConnell spoke earlier today before the Senate session, before the joint session was interrupted and they had to evacuate. And he was condemning he was basically condemning the objections. Okay. We're going to go to that clip here in just a minute here. Let's see here. So African-American business owners, email us at customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Visit workingwithjohnray.com, workingwithjohnray.com. He has a special promotion right now, 2021 special limited time, $20 for income shifting membership. There's a number of things that number of services that he offers. You have a credit repair, discount on travel, audit proof tracking software, discount legal services, tax saving tools and strategies, a number of different things, 9-figure coaching from 9-figure coaches. For more information, visit workingwithjohnray.com, workingwithjohnray.com, and let them know you found out about this from the African History Network show. All right. Okay, let's continue here. I want to go to this clip here, and we didn't have a chance to play it on 9:10 a.m. Because I'm only there for an hour. And this clip is about 8 minutes, and we have so much to cover. And we're going to continue because I have a ton of information. I mean, you know, I printed up the updates from Washington Post. There's about 40 pages. Print up the updates from, and there was 2 categories of updates from the Washington Post that I printed up. So I have a ton of information. But while this clip queues up, Jon Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock won their 2 races in Georgia, rightfully so. Democrats have swept both seats in Georgia's critical runoff elections. NBC News projects giving the Democratic Party control of the U.S. Senate and removing a major roadblock for President-elect Joe Biden. But one of the most important things is that Moscow Mitch McConnell will not be Senate Majority Leader. Okay, which means he won't control the Senate. He won't control which bills come to the Senate floor for debate or for vote. He won't be able to push through and ram through federal judges and Supreme Court justices. He can't block Supreme Court nominations like he did with Merrick Garland, who was nominated to the U.S. Supreme Court by President Barack Obama. And also, it was announced today that it's believed that Joe Biden is going to nominate Judge Merrick Garland to be Attorney General, which is a thumb in the eye of Mitch McConnell, because it was Mitch McConnell who blocked Merrick Garland from the U.S. Supreme Court. They did not even give Merrick Garland a hearing. They did not even give him a hearing. Okay. I'm not a big fan of Merrick Garland, but he'd be better than Attorney General William Barr or Jeff Sessions. Okay. But he should have had a hearing, and he should have had an up or down vote. They denied that to him. And the same thing, they denied that to him, just like they denied it to Myra Selby. Myra Selby was nominated in 2016 to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals to be a judge, 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, which is part of that circuit, part of that territory of Chicago. She was an African-American female judge nominated by President Barack Obama, Judge Myra Selby. She was not given she was blocked by Moscow Mitch McConnell. She was not given a hearing. When Trump became president through the Electoral College, they confirmed Amy Coney Barrett to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. So that 7th Circuit Court of Appeals seat that Amy Coney Barrett got was because they stole it from an African-American woman named Myra Selby. And then after Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, Moscow Mitch McConnell in the Senate, because Republicans control the Senate, rammed through her confirmation. And then the day after she was confirmed, he sent the Senate on recess, and they hadn't passed a coronavirus bill. The day after, they were in such a hurry, they rammed her confirmation through. Okay, because Trump wanted her. Trump wanted her on the Supreme Court. because he wanted to get the results of the 2020 presidential election in the Supreme Court. And he thought if he had 3 Supreme Court justices that he put on the court, they were ruling his favor. They didn't rule in his favor. Didn't work. So I disagree with McConnell on a whole lot of things, on most things, but majority of what he said here, I agree with. So Senator Mitch McConnell, Moscow Mitch McConnell, the Grim Reaper, speaks out against trying to overturn the Electoral College results. Okay. So this was earlier in the day before they had to evacuate the U.S. Senate and U.S. House of Representatives. Let's go to this clip here.
Mr. President. Majority Leader. We're debating a step that has never been taken in American history. Whether Congress should overrule the voters and overturn a presidential. I've served 36 years in the Senate. This will be the most important vote I've ever cast. President Trump claims the election was stolen. The assertions range from specific local allegations to constitutional arguments to sweeping conspiracy theories. I supported the president's right to use the legal system. Dozens of lawsuits received hearings in courtrooms all across our country. But over and over, the courts rejected these claims, including all-star judges whom the president himself has nominated. Every election, we know, features some illegality and irregularity, and of course, that's unacceptable. I support strong state-led voting reforms. Last year's bizarre pandemic procedures must not become the new norm. But my colleagues, nothing before us proves illegality anywhere near the massive scale that would have tipped the entire election. Nor can public doubt alone justify a radical break when the doubt itself was incited without any evidence. The Constitution gives us here in Congress a limited role. We cannot simply declare ourselves a national board of elections on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
The voters, the courts, and the states have all spoken. They've all spoken. If we overrule them, it would damage our republic forever. This election actually was not unusually close.
Right.
Just in recent history, 1976, 2000, and 2004 were all closer than this one. The Electoral College margin is almost identical to what it was in 2016. If this election were overturned by mere allegations from the losing side, our democracy would enter a death spiral. We'd never see the whole nation accept an election again. Every 4 years would be a scramble for power at any cost. The Electoral College, which most of us on this side have been defending for years, would cease to exist.
So let me pause it right here. So Republicans for years have been defending the Electoral College. Now many of these same Republicans want to overrule the Electoral College. Republicans have won 2 presidential elections in the last 20 years in the Electoral College after losing the popular vote. In the 2000 presidential election, where Al Gore lost to George W. Bush, and in the 2016 presidential election, where Hillary Clinton got 3 million more popular votes than Donald Trump. Both of those elections, Republicans won the Electoral College. Republicans have been defending the Electoral College. Now some of those same Republicans want to overrule the Electoral College that voted December 14th because they didn't like the results. Come on, get out of here with this nonsense. Let's go back to Moscow, Mitch McConnell.
Leaving many of our states with no real say at all in choosing a president.
Let me back this up.
Most of us on this side have been defending power at any cost. The Electoral College, which most of us on this side have been defending for years, would cease to exist, leaving many of our states with no real say at all in choosing a president. The effects would go even beyond the elections themselves. Self-government, my colleagues, requires a shared commitment to the truth and a shared respect for the ground rules of our system. We cannot keep drifting apart into 2 separate tribes with a separate set of facts and separate realities, with nothing in common except our hostility towards each other and mistrust for the few national institutions that we all still share. Every time in the last 30 years that Democrats have lost a presidential race, they've tried a challenge just like this. After 2000, after 2004, after 2016. After 2004, a senator joined and forced the same debate.
Oh, stand by.
And believe it or not, Democrats like Harry Reid, Dick Durbin, and Hillary Clinton praised them and applauded the stunt.
Let me back this up for a second because it froze for a minute.
After 2000, after 2004, after 2016. After 2004, a senator joined and forced the same debate. And believe it or not, Democrats like Harry Reid, Dick Durbin, and Hillary Clinton praised them and applauded the stunt. Republicans condemned those baseless efforts back then. And we just spent 4 years condemning Democrats' shameful attacks on the validity of President Trump's own election. So look, there can be no double standard. The media that is outraged today spent 4 years aiding and abetting Democrats' attacks on our institutions after they lost. But we must not imitate and escalate what we repudiate. Our duty is to govern for the public good. The United States Senate has a higher calling than an endless spiral of partisan vengeance. Congress will either override the voters, overrule them, the voters, the states, and the courts for the first time ever, or honor the people's decision. Will either guarantee Democrats' delegitimizing efforts after 2016 become a permanent new routine for both sides, or declare that our nation deserves a lot better than this. We'll either hasten down a poisonous path where only the winners of election actually accept the results, or show we can still muster the patriotic courage that our forebears showed not only in victory, but in defeat. The framers built the Senate to stop short-term passions from boiling over and melting the foundations of our republic. So I believe protecting our constitutional order requires respecting the limits of our own power. It would be unfair and wrong to disenfranchise American voters and overrule the courts and the states on this extraordinarily thin basis. And I will not pretend such a vote would be a harmless protest gesture while relying on others to do the right thing. I will vote to respect the people's decision and defend our system of government as we know it.
Okay, so that was from earlier today, before the House and the Senate had to evacuate. Okay, but largely, McConnell's correct. I don't agree with him on many things, but largely, majority of what he said was correct. Okay, now let's see here. Okay, so we have an update. 3 more people have died near the Capitol building. NBC News has an update here. Let me scroll back down to this. It was 3 dead near Capitol in separate medical emergencies. 3 dead near the U.S. Capitol in separate medical emergencies. Washington, D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department Chief Robert Contee, C-O-N-T-E-E, said that 3 more deaths were reported near the U.S. Capitol, near the Capitol riots, after people had apparently suffered separate medical emergencies. Okay. He said that 3 more deaths were reported near the Capitol riots, U.S. Capitol riots, after people had apparently suffered, quote, separate medical emergencies, end quote. As of yet, he did not provide additional details about those deaths. They bring the death toll at Wednesday's riots or insurrection to 4. Earlier, a woman was shot by Capitol Police and later pronounced dead. The circumstances of the shooting will be investigated, Robert Contee said. Now, 14 officers were injured in the riots on Wednesday, in the insurrection on Wednesday as well. 2 officers have been hospitalized after sustaining injuries during the demonstrations. 1 officer sustained serious injuries after being pulled into the crowd and assaulted. Robert Contee, the Washington, D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department chief, Robert Contee also said that 2 pipe bombs had been uncovered, one at the Republican National Committee, the RNC, and one at the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, as well as long guns and Molotov cocktails that were uncovered in a truck on the U.S. Capitol grounds. Okay. So you'll hear more about this also. And then, as I said earlier in the show, we see that the House rejects Arizona's certification objection. The House followed the U.S. Senate in rejecting an attempt to object to Arizona's Electoral College certification. A total of 121 Republican members voted to sustain the objection, while 303 House members were opposed. Members of both chambers will reconvene in a joint session to continue the Electoral College certification process. Senator Josh Hawley, Republican from Missouri, told his fellow lawmakers that he still intends to object to Pennsylvania certification, but will yield his speaking time to move toward a vote. If Senator Jeff Hawley, Republican of Missouri, objects, the chambers will split into their individual sessions once again and have up to 2 hours of debate time before voting on the objection. Okay. And then we also see the emergency order in Washington, D.C. has been extended for 2 weeks. Washington, D.C. will extend its emergency order for 2 more weeks through the end of President Donald Trump's term. Mayor Muriel Bowser announced late Wednesday, quote, President Trump continues to fan rage and violence. Mayor Muriel Bowser said in a statement announcing a 15-day extension earlier on Wednesday in the wake of the overrunning of the U.S. Capitol by pro-Trump thugs, pro-Trump mobs. Mayor Muriel Bowser ordered a citywide curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Okay. Now, so we see the Georgia runoff races. Democrats won both of those. We'll talk some more about that tomorrow. We talked about Reverend Raphael Warnock last night. Let's see here. Okay. There was a good article from New York Times dealing with Stacey Abrams. The 10-year Stacey Abrams project to flip Georgia has come to fruition. The 10-year Stacey Abrams project to flip Georgia has come to fruition. So check this out from New York Times. We posted this. It got thousands of likes. And if Stacey Abrams runs for governor again, she's going to win. Governor of Georgia, she's going to win. Okay. She has built a huge infrastructure, and people see how important the governorship is. Because I guarantee you, if Stacey Abrams was governor of Georgia right now, she would have handled the coronavirus pandemic much differently in Georgia. There'll be a lot of people alive now that are dead because of Brian Kemp. Okay. And Brian Kemp's incompetence trying to please Donald Trump. As Democrats flip both Georgia's Senate seats from the incumbent Republicans, credit flowed to one person broadly acknowledged as being most responsible for Georgia's new status as a Democratic state. Stacey Abrams. Ms. Abrams, the former minority leader of the Georgia State House, has spent a decade building a Democratic political infrastructure in the state, first with her New Georgia Project, and now with Fair Fight, the voting rights organization she founded in the wake of her losing the gubernatorial race in 2018. Late Tuesday night, January 5th, Ms. Abrams praised the thousands of quote, organizers, volunteers, canvassers, and tireless groups, end quote, who helped rebuild the state's Democratic Party from the rump it was when she became the state House minority leader in 2011. She tweeted 11:24 p.m. January 5th, with new votes joining the tally, we are on a strong path, but even while we wait for more, let's celebrate the extraordinary organizers, volunteers, canvassers, and tireless groups that haven't stopped going since November. Across our state, we roared, a few miles to go, but well done. Now, while Stacey Abrams is widely expected to run for governor again in 2022, she is at the moment one of the most influential American politicians not in elected office. It was her political infrastructure and strategy of increasing turnout among the state of Georgia's African American, Latino, and Asian voters. Asians do vote, contrary to what people want to tell you on social media. Asians don't vote. That's a damn lie. They haven't done the research. Asians do vote. And all you have to do, I've done a broadcast dealing with this. All you have to do, go to NBCnews.com. Go to NBCnews.com. And in the upper right-hand corner, they have a upper right-hand corner, NBCnews.com. You'll see 3 horizontal lines. Okay, click on those 3 horizontal lines, and then it drops down with their different platforms. All right, they have different platforms. They have NBC Black, NBC Latino, and then they have Asian American. Click on Asian American. NBC Asian American. They have a whole platform dealing with the Asian American community, all these different articles, and they talk about Asian Americans in politics, Asian Americans in voting, all things like this. During the 2020 election, they had this. During the 2018 midterm election, they had this. All of this, and you can go through, read these articles. So when people say Asians don't vote, that's a lie. Do they vote in the same numbers as African Americans? No, because their history is entirely different. Okay, I've talked about this before. When you talk about Asian Americans, you're talking about people coming from at least 20 different countries who speak different languages, come from different cultures, have different histories. Many of them come from countries where they couldn't vote because they're coming from a totalitarian country. They're coming from a different political structure. Many of them came from countries where they could not vote. So that's not in their history like it's in our history. Okay, but Asians do vote. And as they went from 4% of the U.S. population to 5% of the U.S. population, they went from about 3.5% of the voting electorate to 5% of the voting electorate. But to say Asians don't vote, that's just not true at all. That's just blatantly false. So check that out as well. A lot of people don't even know that exists. We'll post the link here. This is to the Asian American platform from NBC News. You can read all those articles. Proper documentation ends all conversation. All right. Okay, so it was Stacey Abrams' political infrastructure and strategy of increasing turnout among states, among the state of Georgia's African-American, Latino, and Asian voters that laid the groundwork for both President-elect Joe Biden's victory in November and the Democrats' performance in the Senate races. Stacey Abrams was not alone in Georgia. Of course, numerous other Black women have led a decades-long organizing effort to transform the state's electorate. Deborah Scott, founder of Georgia Stand Up, said after Joe Biden's victory in the general election, November 3rd general election, she said, "We weren't surprised that Georgia turned blue because we've been working on it for over 15 years. Felicia Davis, a longtime organizer in Clayton County, said it's been an uphill battle because here we're not just women, we're Southern women, and we're not just Southern women, we're Southern Black women. Still, Stacey Abrams was the most visible face at the forefront of the turnout push. And when it came time to cut a TV ad urging Georgians to confirm the status of their absentee ballots, voters have until Friday to cure absentee ballots that contain minor errors. Stacey Abrams appeared in the ad reminding them to do so. Okay, so check out this article here from New York Times. The 10-year Stacey Abrams project to flip Georgia has come to fruition. This is from January 6, 2021 by Reed J. Epstein and Asted W. Herndon for the New York Times. Okay, so hey, be sure to follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Turn on live notifications so you know when we go live. Follow us there, subscribe. Then also follow us on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP on YouTube. Click on the bell so you know when we go live also, because a lot of people don't get notifications when we go live, even though they follow us. If you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, then also through PayPal, paypal.me /the AHN Show, and paypal.me / the AHN Show. Let's see here. Okay, more. Okay. So more outlets are talking about the 25th Amendment. This is CNN. I monitor about 35 different news sources on a daily basis. So I'm looking at the updates from different news sources before we get off the air. CNN, okay, reliable sources. They're asking, will the 25th Amendment be invoked? Like a wide range of opinion leaders are urging. We're going to see, looks like we're going to see some resignations in the Trump administration as well, where the White House aides who resigned, like Stephanie Grisham, who is the chief of staff for Melania Trump, and Sarah Matthews, speak publicly. Okay. I'm just trying to take a look at any. Okay, domestic terrorism on Capitol Hill. Okay, so CNN is calling it domestic terrorism. Thursday's front page of the New York Times in all caps says Trump incites mob. Washington Post banner headline says Trump mob storms Capitol. Okay, so CNN, the reliable sources email newsletter says a date which will live in infamy, a date which will live in infamy. The events on Capitol Hill on Wednesday, January 6, 2021, will be remembered as an act of domestic terrorism against the United States, as a national tragedy, and as a real life manifestation of online radicalization, as a real life manifestation of online radicalization. All right. So look, hey, that's going to do it for us. We'll be back tomorrow night. We rebroadcast these shows throughout the day. African-American business owners, email us at customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network also. Remember, and then my DVD lectures are at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have the bundle pack, the Africans who were here before Columbus, the Africans who were here before Columbus, as well as other bundle packs, Black Migration 1619 to 2019. And we have, African American History Month is coming up. We have a 15 DVD bundle pack of Black History Month bundle pack lectures I've done in the past. We posted that link here also. The name of the show is Reliable Sources on CNN. Somebody doesn't have cable. Okay. So whatever. Look, we have to get out of here. Remember, right now is correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace.